The most dangerous motorcycle club in the world, Hells Angels, is full of mystery and deadly secrets. It's nearly impossible to get into this club, and once you're in, even the devil cannot save you. Many of the members have even served life sentences for committing brutal criminal offenses. How did these angels turn into devils? How were they caught in the crime? On number 5, we have Adam Lee, the most notorious member you'll ever come across in the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club, as he faced charges for the Berkshire County triple murder of 2011. Adam didn't commit the murders alone. He had the help of David Chalu and Caius Veyavis. They were all given life sentences, and there will be no parole. These 3 men committed the crime in the most brutal way possible with no remorse. The victims were David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell. They were all shot down by the Hells Angel motorcycle members and were cut into pieces. Their body parts were packed in a plastic bag, and it took the police 13 days of investigation to find the dismembered body parts of the victims. The whole world was shocked to know the triple murder, which took place in David Glasser's home in Pittsfield. The reason Hall was the one with the most criminal mind and intention among the 3 was because of his constant denial of prosecutorial misconduct, and he wanted to have a new trial. Great publicity surrounded the case, and it got major media attention. People were interested to know the reason behind these 3 murders. Adam was sentenced to a life sentence for 3 consecutive periods, and he was found guilty by the courts. On number 4, we have Neil Cantrell. Robert Hull was a person who used to grow cannabis. He took a sudden decision to stop all this and put an abrupt end to his illegal growing of cannabis. Robert used to grow cannabis for Neil Cantrell, and he stopped that too. It was not taken in the right sense by Neil. His range consisted of Stephen and Hells Angel Robert Laurie. Stephen is his son. They all attacked Robert and exported and assaulted him. They want everything according to their terms, and when it doesn't go as expected, it leads them to commit this crime. They were caught by the police, and they had no room to escape. The court found them guilty, and Lowy was sentenced to 9 years in prison, and a 6-year jail term was given to Stephen. Neil was also found guilty, and he was sentenced to serve 10 years in prison. Even though Neil was 62 years old, the court sentenced him to 10 years in prison because he exported and assaulted Robert brutally. He planned for a meeting with him and then even forced him to write off all his properties to them. This was a serious offense, and his intention was clearly visible. The atmosphere the club members of the Hells Angels set is terrifying. They create danger around them by being voluntarily involved in criminal activities. Many of them didn't even intend to kill someone, but during extreme intensity fights, they commit such grievous criminal offenses, trapping them in jail for decades. On number 3, we have Pitt Martin. Emery Pitt Martin is the nickname of Emery Martin, who was arrested for the cocaine trade. In 2018, Emery was arrested as part of the RCMP investigation. In Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, he exercised a significant amount of power, and he misused it. He trafficked cocaine in bulk amounts and was jailed for 15 years as the court found him guilty. This veteran of Quebec's brutal bike war recently shared his jail experience and had nothing good to say about it. He had spent nearly 20 years in prison altogether for various offenses at different times. Martin didn't do much work in the supply of cocaine. What he did was introduce people who have similar interests to each other. He connected the buyers and sellers. He used to communicate with his friends who supply narcotics through encrypted phones as he feared being caught. He is one of the few in the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club who took preventative measures to not be caught. But well, times were not in his favor all the time. There are many Hells Angels who are very old but still involved in criminal activity. They consider age as a number and jail as just a room. They show no remorse, and most of them are ready to serve their sentence, as after finishing their jail time, they can go back to commit crimes. To today, people are scared to approach them as we don't know how these people would react. There are many reported cases of exploiting people and even cases of robbing passerby. They show little to no mercy to anyone. On number 2, we have David Giles. David Giles was sentenced to 18 years in prison. He was constantly involved in criminal activity and was caught by law enforcement officers now and then on. The 18-year sentence issued to him is the longest jail time a Hells Angels member has ever been given. He was a notorious criminal who was on the lookout. He was arrested for transporting illegal substances in humongous quantities. Carol Ross was the judge who read out several reasons for giving him 18 years in prison. At that time, David was 66 years old and not in his best health. The nature of the transaction was one of the major reasons for imprisonment, and the court found out that he will start this transaction as a business, and David has such interest. They pricked it off from the very start so that they wouldn't have to deal with it in the future. David had to be in jail for 11 years, and he served 7 years in jail during the pre-trial time. The judge was kind enough to give him credit for that and take those years out of his sentence. Meanwhile, the health condition of David was deteriorating. He needed liver transplantation, and his lawyer presented the poor health condition of David in court. The prosecutor argued that David should be given at least 20 years in prison, as he had a massive role in an international cocaine conspiracy. David was not able to serve his long sentence, as he died after 3 months after serving the jail time in Abbotsford Hospital. In Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, some people consider themselves a leader. They form small groups and roam around in their Harley-Davidsons, making plans to commit theft or robbery. Usually they bring their family members into their gang as well. Next, we have one such story. On number 1, we have Norman Cox and Rob Thomas. This father-son duo was sentenced to 15 years in prison for killing Dane Phillips. The only reason for this homicide was that Phillips tried to resolve a conflict. Phillips' 2 sons and 2 teenage boys were fighting. Philip came into the middle of it to resolve the conflict, as a caring father figure will do. But little did he know that these 2 teenagers were connected to the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Norman Cox and Rob Thomas assaulted Phillips with a baseball bat and a hammer. Both of his sons watched the incident without being able to do anything. Matthew and Anson Shell were also involved in assaulting Phillips. There were 4 of them against 1 person. The sons of Phillips were shocked and terrified, as they never thought that a single conflict would escalate into the death of their beloved father. They hit Phillips brutally with no mercy. They had the intention to murder Phillips, as they repeatedly assaulted him with a baseball bat. The homicide took place in June 2011, and it shocked people around the world, as it was that time they realized the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club has connections all over. If someone gets involved with a Hells Angels member, then it might be their last day to be alive. The men were given 12 years after giving pre-trial credit. The wife of Phillips reacted to the loss of her husband. Jeannie said that Phillips was a warm-hearted man and the father of her 3 sons. They miss his absence very badly. Even the court pointed out that Phillips was unarmed at the time of his death. He didn't have any intention to cause harm to Norman and Rob. He wanted to resolve the conflict and make peace. With this, the court clarified that this was a clear case of homicide, and it did not happen as a fight between 2 people. They intentionally assaulted Phillips and killed him. The law enforcement officers have blacklisted the members of Hells Angels. They don't follow any law and have a rebellious attitude. The members of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club do not like the restrictions put on them, and they think of themselves as far ahead of normal people in terms of resilience and strength. The selection process for this club is dangerous to your state of mind and health, as you'll have to go through excruciating pain for a long period. Once you get in, you can ride in your motorcycles, preferably Harley-Davidson, and roam around with your newly attained gang of rebels. They usually show up in a nearby bar or clubhouse to catch up with each other, and often it turns into huge fights, which end in murder or criminal activity. What do you think of Hells Angels? Do you think all the club members are involved in criminal activity? Let us know in the comments.